Do you want to be famous? Do you want to have a lot of money? Do you want to have all these things the world can offer? Do you think that's going to make you happy? Well, celebrities seem to have all of these things, but for some reason, they seem like they're the most unhappy. And I think I know why. So before we get into that, my name is Elijah, and I make videos about faith that engages culture for Jesus. Shout out to What Do You Mean for the video that we're going to be reacting to. Let's get right into it.
Celebrities just might be some of the most miserable people on the planet.
Oh, I'm always depressed, all the time.
I struggle with happiness.
I get depressed.
I have anxiety, depression.
But I feel like the way that I have money kind of took away a lot of my happiness.
If I get this, I'll be happy. If I do this, I'll be happy.
Well, how could you be sad when all of this opportunities come to you?
Which is a question that I was determined to get to the bottom of. So after spending hundreds of hours listening to celebrities and hearing them talk about their lack of happiness, I discovered a pattern that all of them seem to go through, leading to inevitable misery. So it usually starts like this. A couple years after achieving their dreams, eventually you'll hear them say things like this.
You have all this stuff, doesn't mean you're happy. You know, I can speak for myself.
When you talk about depression and reveal suicidal thoughts.
I've pulled that song not only from previous experiences, but I think my whole life.
Does money bring happiness to you?
No.
Oh, I'm always depressed, all the time.
I thought that success was all I needed. That's what was gonna bring the happiness. Buying my mom a house, being the fame, the accolades, having people say, yo, you are the best in the game. I thought those would be the things that would bring happiness. And then when those things came, the happiness wasn't there. And
I struggle with happiness. There's times where I feel really happy, but at that time, I also know this is temporary.
And my focus is finding this way through. I was thinking about how
Wow. And I think that's a real big problem that all of us have to deal with, because there's something in our life that we want to achieve. There's something in our life that we feel like if we just have that, we're going to be happy. If I can only have that car, if I can only achieve this success, if I only have that boyfriend or girlfriend, if I only have that money, I'll finally be happy. But when you finally get that, you're still depressed.
the way that I was gonna do it.
As a Beatle, we made it, and there was nothing to do. We had money, we had fame, and there was no joy.
So they found that the success that they always thought would make them happy didn't. And if you're like most people, you probably echo the same sentiment as these commenters who said, you know, I'm sure their lives are just so rough and terrible, but somehow I don't have a hard time not feeling bad for them. All I'll say is I sincerely prefer to cry in a mansion than on the street. The biggest trick that the rich has ever done is to convince the rest that being rich is depressing. I'd rather be a depressed billionaire than just depressed. So in other words, people don't believe that their lives are really all that bad and that the money and success didn't make their lives better. And initially, I was inclined to think the same thing until I heard so many celebrities echo what MGK and Kelly Clarkson said here.
I mean, it probably would have meant to you, like when the world's eyes came on you and people were wondering, like, you know, like, well, how could you be sad when all of this opportunities come to you? And, you know, really it's like, the fact that you're overstimulated, it's like you have so much of these things, but they really don't equal out to emotional support. You know, they're just like materials
They're fleeting.
Yeah, they're fleeting.
When you have everything and you only need more and more to satisfy, everything needs to be more and more, and then you get this dopamine high, but then you have this massive crash below. And that's a real thing. The thing that you're chasing will never ever be enough to your brain, to your mind.
And if the full extent of it was just that these celebrities came to discover that money and success didn't make them happy, then that would be one thing. But unfortunately, they entered into the next stage and soon came to realize that it's far worse than that. I want you to listen closely to these next clips to hear why.
Is that what I want for myself? Did I get too big? Because I like people, I like entertaining. And the higher up I go, for some reason, the less happy I am.
I had bought into the not uncommon notion that when I taste success, when I get over there, then I'll be happy. But the strangest thing happened. As the show got more successful, I got more depressed.
But I feel like the way that I have money kind of took away a lot of my happiness.
I was a millionaire. I had beautiful women in my life. I had cars, a house, an incredible a solid gold career, and yet on a daily basis I wanted to commit suicide.
When I was on top of the world, it became more and more and more depressed until it was like suicidal thought.
And I know tons of people who I grew up with in the Silicon Valley boom who have hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account and are as miserable and as lonely and as broken as you'll ever see.
They're less happy. The more and more they get famous, the more money they get, the more depressed and sad they get. So maybe everything's not what it seems to be.
I'm doing everything I had dreamt of doing for 30 years. It all came true. And I am the least happy I've ever been in my life.
So contrary to these commenters that believe that they'd obviously be happier being rich than being poor, these celebrities didn't just find that money and success couldn't make them happier, but instead they found that it made them even more unhappy than they ever were before the money and success. But maybe you're still skeptical and you don't believe them. Well, I didn't either until something finally clicked for me. I finally understood why money and success make you far less happy than you were before. To understand this, think about that thing that in your heart of hearts you say, if I could just get that thing, then I would finally be happy and fulfilled. Now, it doesn't have to be money or fame. It could be anything from experiencing personal growth to finding the right spouse or starting a family or moving to another state or whatever. So whatever it is, the only difference between us and these miserable celebrities is that they were unlucky enough to have gotten everything that they've ever dreamed of.
He said that they were unlucky enough to achieve all of their dreams and goals. That's crazy to think about, but it's true.
And once they did, it ultimately made them even more unhappy because, at least when they were dreaming about the future, they had the excitement and the little bit of happiness that came from chasing their dreams. But once they got it, not only did they lose that little bit of excitement and happiness that they got from doing the chasing, but they eventually experienced the consequences of trying to squeeze happiness out of anything finite. I mean, just listen to how Tom Brady puts it.
Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? Maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life is me. I think, God, it's got to be more than this. I mean, this can't be what it's all cracked up to be. I mean, I've done it. I'm 27 and what else is there for me?
So you could think about it this way. When you're incredibly thirsty for a glass of water and you eventually get it, once you drink it, you do feel good. But that fulfillment only lasts until you get thirsty again. Eventually, you find yourself unfulfilled and in need of more. And so if we finally achieve our wildest dreams, it's like drinking the last cup of water on earth. Just like everything finite, it will eventually be emptied. And once it is, you'll realize what Tom Brady is describing, that it can't offer you anything more. Realizing this is what caused C.S. Lewis to say, if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. In other words, these finite things weren't made for us to treat them as if they were infinite. God is the only thing that's infinite. And to continue the water analogy, because God is infinite, there's always more water to draw from. This is why Jesus, who claimed to be God, said that he could give you living water and can offer you water that will never run dry. And what Jesus said there really had me thinking, because just as St. Augustine once said in a prayer, God, our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you.
God, our hearts are restless until we find our rest in you. That's so good.
And so the answer to the problem of celebrity depression is to not look to the finite for which only the infinite can provide.
Shout out to What Do You Mean for making that video, but it's so true. We look to things that are limited in our life. Like literally, you can achieve everything in this world, but it's limited. But there's one thing that's not limited, and that's God. He's infinite. He is all powerful. He is all knowing. He is everything. And when we keep on seeking Jesus, we can constantly be getting more and more of him. God does not end. He's limitless. So I encourage you guys to go to him. You've probably been stuck. You probably figured out that you've got your dreams and you've chased your goals and you still are left empty. Or maybe you're still chasing your goals and you think that if you could just have this one thing, you could finally be happy. But it's not true. So I encourage you guys to seek Jesus and chase after Jesus more than anything else. And that's when you'll be the most satisfied. So I encourage you guys to do that today. All right, guys, make sure to comment down below what your thoughts are, what your comments are. I always love to hear them. Make sure you like the video to boost the algorithm, to help me get more views so that more people can reach this video and hear about the gospel and hear about what Jesus can truly do in their life.